As you know, good evening, everybody. Okay, so yeah, I'm continuing, the session like whatever we discussed yesterday, with the Spring Data JPA, and hope you guys are not having any questions on this on the JPA. Or Spring JPA, whatever Spring Data JPA repository, whatever we discussed yesterday, mostly it should be clear for you guys. Yeah. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, or we'll continue with the next topics. Okay, so thanks. Okay, so yeah, yesterday we discussed about it, but I just wanted to touch base it one more time, and then uh, shift into the next topic. Okay, so yeah, we learned about all these four stages. Okay, so writing a lot of SQL queries, and writing a lot of Java code. Okay, and that is part of JDBC when we are using. When it comes to the Spring JDBC, writing the queries, will not be it's not decreased, right? We still write like a lot of queries. Okay, but it is like very minimized Java code we were using in the under the Spring JDBC, right? So one step ahead, like we started using JPA, and once we got the JPA, okay, Java. Yeah, so once we got the JPA, we were not worried about writing queries, and also we are really not worried much, enough for writing Java code. Okay, and it made very simple because of the entity kind of concept that we have introduced at the at you know we have introduced it at the JPA level. So it made easy to map those entity, like the database table and the bean. Okay, so yeah, so that actually resolve like lot of Java code as well, like we don't require to write much Java code. And when it come to the Spring Data JPA, like let's make JPA even more simple. Okay, so it made like whatever the changes that we have done in the JPA side. Okay, so those things are also which are not required in the Spring Data JPA. So generally there are nothing that we are going to write it until unless if you need any user defined you know user defined methods, okay, that were required to find something in the database. So we were writing those things. Otherwise it is like pretty much everything, it was like uh, pretty much everything was like already defined. We just need to use it. Okay, so that's how, like the major difference between all these four, right? So yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, like anytime whenever if you have some question or something, let's come back to me. Okay. Yeah, we can discuss on it. So this is what, like the examples which I wanted to show you. JDBC, we were writing like lot of code. Okay, and in the Spring JDBC example, it is like very minimized code from Java. Okay, and yeah, so yeah, Hibernate versus JPA, right? What exactly JPA, right? JPA defines the specification, and exactly it is an API. So how do you define entities, attributes, who manages entities, that those things actually handled by JPA. Okay. So Hibernate is one of the popular implementation of JPA, right? So that's why, in the code, we never used Hibernate implementation. Instead of, we used JPA, so that, in future, if you wanted to implement Hibernate, yeah, you can just, pull out that library from, add the dependency in the POM, and, you can just use it directly, right? So that's why, I never mentioned about using Hibernate directly. Okay. So if we are using Hibernate directly, then, you don't require, like, we cannot do other implementations, like, which are similar to Hibernate, like, that is one is Toplink. We can use it, as part of, instead of Hibernate, we can go for other options as well. So there are other JPA implementations. That is one of it is like Toplink. Okay. So instead of Hibernate, we can also go with Toplink as well. So if you learn about JPA, if you learn about Spring Data JPA, right, that's it. Like, you don't require to go, much deeper on the Hibernate side, because these are all, Hibernate is one of the implementation for JPA. So it if you know JPA, then it doesn't require to, like, specifically learn about Hibernate, because it is almost same. Like, just only, sometime the annotations will be differ. Okay. Other than that, it will be always same. Okay. So whatever you use it in JPA, it will be always matching with Hibernate. Okay. Yeah. So if you have any questions on that, implementing how we need to implement Hibernate, yeah, let me know. I'll just share some couple of examples, like, how we can do that, in the code, right? So yeah, so let me move to the next topic. Okay, so the next one is Docker. Okay, so we right now, we were writing like a lot of code, and we were just creating a couple of services, and also we connected to the database. We have done, some modifications as well, and we discussed about the JPA framework and, Spring Data JPA. Okay. Yeah, now let's go into a topic which, which is actually, required for the deployment process. Okay. So before that, we have to learn about how the traditional deployment works, right? Traditional means, like, the existing one. Okay. So how it works, right? Like, the first point, deployment process, you know it's kind of a very lengthy process that we follow right now. Okay. First, we have to set up the hardware. Okay. And we have to set up either OS, like, if you want to run your application on Windows Server, or if you want to run your application on the Linux. Yeah, depending on that, the OS installation will be done. And the second one, we have to install specific software. So if you are developing a Python application, or if you are developing a Java application, or Node.js, or something else, uh, you know, uh, we have to be, that server has to be capable enough, to execute that application, right? So the software installation should be done accordingly. Okay. And then, it comes to our application. Okay. So you have to set up your application dependencies, like, anything, like, creating some folders in the local server, or, if it requires some kind of jar files dependency. So we have to do all, we have to set up those dependencies. Then, we will install the application into that, Windows Server, right? So, we have, we also, need to have some kind of Tomcat server or WebSphere, whatever, required for your application. We have to deploy, we have to install that as well, right? So this is a manual approach that, it takes lot of time, and and it is like high chance of taking mistakes. Okay, so it is always like so many times actually we might see lot of issues while setting up or while upgrading your server from one level to another, right? So this is a manual approach, right? So understanding the deployment process with Docker. So how simple that Docker might doing it, so we'll get to know. Okay, so simplified deployment process, sorry. Yeah, so the first one is we don't require to worry about OS and which programming language, it doesn't matter, and hardware doesn't matter. Okay, so what exactly this does, right? Developer, whoever writes the code, okay, they actually create a Docker image, okay, and that operations run the Docker image using a very simple command. Okay, so okay, what we do, we just create a Docker image, with some certain commands, and using Maven also you can create it, and with a very simple plugin from the Spring. Okay, we use to create a Docker image, and then that image will be handed over to operations team so that they can run this Docker image wherever they want, like in which server or anything, any place that they can run this Docker image, and they don't require to install anything, they don't require to install software, any dependency software for the application. So the image whatever we are creating, which is kind of a virtual environment, to run that application, uh, without any external dependencies, right? So that's make like Docker very simple, okay, for the deployment process, and yeah, it minimizes lot of steps. Okay, so how Docker make it easy, right? That was the question we need, right? So Docker image has everything you need to run your software, your application. First one is operating system. The second one is application runtime like JDK, Python, Node.js, whatever it is required for the application to run. Yeah, it has those, okay, in that image itself. And application code and dependencies. Okay, so you can run a Docker container, okay, the same way everywhere, like in your local machine, corporate data center, or a cloud. Okay, so what is this Docker container? So Docker container, which is going to help you to run the images, whatever you are just creating from your programming language, or from for your project, whatever. So we can run those images in Docker container. So this Docker container, like we can utilize it in your local machine and corporate data center and cloud. Okay, so why actually it is popular, right? It is like very simple steps. Okay, so it was popular because of standardized application packaging. So same packaging for all type of applications. So you don't require to do different type of packaging, okay, for Python applications or any other application or Java application. Okay, so it is pretty much same. Okay, so the image creation process is always same, okay, for any type of language. Okay, and the second one is, okay, second one is multi-platform support. Okay, so as I mentioned, right, you create an image, okay, and you can run that image anywhere, like in your desktop or in your data center or any of the cloud, right? So that is what we are going to see. Okay, so first step, we are going to create a sample project, okay, which is having a simple service or a hello program, and we are going to create an image, and that image will be loaded into our local desktop software first. Okay, and we'll try to run that container. Okay, and we'll see whether the Docker is able to load the application or not, and we'll test it. And the same image, will be, pushed into of one of our cloud. Okay, like AWS as Azure. Okay, and that there also will try to, call the service. Okay, after deploying that image into, uh, you know AWS. Okay, so we'll see, like, traditional deployment and also the image deployment for the AWS. Okay, so it requires only one class. Okay, so that I'm going to tell at the last. So yeah, so understanding, the Docker terminology, right? So we're talking about image, we're talking about repository, container, so all these things, and Docker file, right? So what exactly these things, right? Docker image, okay. So image, when I mention image, a package representing specific version of your application or software, right? So this contains everything that your app needs. Okay, so OS, software, code, dependencies, everything that it will be, you know, uh, having under that Docker image. So the second one is Docker registry, right? A place to store your Docker images. Okay, so you're creating a lot of Docker images, for your applications, but there should be a place that we need to store it, right? So that we call it as Docker registry, right? So Docker Hub, so a registry to host Docker images. This is pretty much similar to your GitHub, whatever we learned earlier. So Docker Hub is also a registry, to host all the Docker images. Okay. And Docker repository, yeah, where exactly these Docker images are, stored. Actually, Docker images for a specific app. Okay, we have this Docker repository, and it will differentiate, different images, tags, or use it to, differentiate the images for your specific application. Okay, and Docker container, yeah, so runtime instance of a Docker image. Okay, so where we have, like, where we load these images, right? We load those images into Docker container so that you can run your application seamlessly. Okay, so you don't require to worry about anything. Okay, so Docker container will help us, to run your images. Okay, and the Docker file. Okay, so file with instructions to create a Docker image, so that we call it as Docker file. Okay, so these are the pretty much Docker terminology. And sorry, yeah. So let's go and check an example first. Like, so before that, what we need to do, yeah, you just if whatever you wanted to do for Docker, so we just need to, one second. Yeah, just try to visit Docker. Okay, so Docker is, uh, yeah, so we have to download this Docker desktop if you really want to execute something from the Docker. So you just download this one. It is available for all the applications. Okay, sorry, all the OS. Okay, OS types. Okay, Apple and Intel and also Windows. Okay, so once you download it, actually, the installation is very simple. Okay, and you know you can just open Docker desktop, something like this. Okay, so it will. Okay, just a minute. Take click cancel or what? Oh, it's not coming. Yeah, okay. Your login session is no longer valid. Okay. Yeah. But just a second, okay? So something. Okay. Let me close this. Okay. Yeah. So just a minute. Actually, it is not allowing me to. Just a minute. Okay. Just give me a second. Okay, so let me just, yeah. Okay, so once you once you downloaded the Docker desktop, okay, so it requires your login, and you have to definitely create a Docker ID. Okay, so that Docker ID will be will help you to identify what are the containers, images, and all the things that you have to run your images. Actually, it is going to show you under this Docker desktop. Okay, so okay, so I think I need to just update. Okay, so okay, I'll check it later. Okay, but yeah, let's see if it is going to work or not. Okay, and let me just open the Eclipse. Okay, so okay, I think it is already available. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so before going into creating a project or whatever to go with the job, sorry, the this one, right? Like creating an image, correct? So before that, like what we need to do, we just need to go through some of the you know we just need to go through the some of the commands which are really useful for Docker, right? So let's go through them first, and then we can work on how to create image and all, right? So let's see that. Okay, first, yeah, there are like lot of commands that we are going to utilize, okay, when we are doing Docker, right? So let me just open them. Mm, okay, now this, yeah, let me go to that once again. Okay, so these are the Docker commands, like we are going to utilize them. Okay, uh, when we wanted to run the application, or whatever the steps that we wanted to check, okay, it goes with these commands. Okay, so the first one is like Docker container run. Okay, so when you push an image into a Docker container, right, like into the Docker, right? So if you want to run that image, so what we exactly do that, right? We generally use this Docker container run command, and with detached mode. When you say -d, it will be a detached mode. Okay, and hyphen p, that means the port which it is going to run, that is 3333, and this is the incoming port for Docker, and you have to set it up the port which exactly your application is also going to run, that is Tomcat, right? We were utilizing Tomcat, so I just given 8080 as the default port number, and this is my my user ID under the Docker, and then whatever the demo project that you are trying to run it, okay, we have to run that one. Okay, Docker -demo : latest. Okay, so this is how we run an image, whenever it when from the Docker. Okay, so and we have like how to check the Docker container, how many was present in the container. Yeah, you can just use the similar kind of objects, sorry, commands that we utilize in the command prompt, like ls and image ls, and to container to stop. Okay, so everything, it is like pretty much similar to our dos commands. Okay, and except when you start stop the containers. Okay, there are like very specific commands to do those things. Okay, so for if you wanted to stop any of the running image, okay, so you just need to stop, utilize docker container stop. Okay, and it will stop that the particular id whatever you provided. It will stop that running. Okay, so if you want to check the version of the Docker, you can just use Docker hyphen version, and the same thing, Docker container ls will display um, all your all your images which are currently running on the container. Okay, so yeah, so you can check image list. You can run any of the images directly on your the Docker, and which will be in the detached mode. And so when I say detached mode, like it is kind of asynchronous process. Okay, so we don't require to wait for that container should start running and all those things. So it will automatically run, and within a detached mode, and you can still continue your other work on the images side in the same command prompt. Okay, so that's why we are calling it as detached mode. Okay, and if you want to build the application, okay, so we just need to use docker build command. Okay, and that will build your application based upon your version numbers. Okay, so if you're doing it for first time, yeah, you can just use v1, and then if you wanted to build the second v2 v3, so and you can independently run all these things, v1 v2 v3 images independently. You can run it, and you can expose those services, okay, with the different port numbers for your clients. Okay, if somebody is really working on using it on v1, okay, so in the in the normal way, right, like if you are working on application, okay, so which is like a web service project. Okay, and you have different versions, like initially you started with v1, and you have in the second release, actually, you went for V2, and the third release, you went for V3. Okay, so there are three versions of your service which are running in production, right? So, some of the clients which are really not interested to utilize your versions, okay, the first version is enough for them. And the second one, there are other clients which are used, they recommended for V2, and there are other clients which they are utilizing v3 services. So for this, like you don't require, always what we need to do with the existing architecture. So we have to maintain all those v1 v2 v3 version software deployments. Every time it has to be combined into one project, and then we can deploy it, right? So but when it comes to the Docker, okay, so you can independently host these versions separately as an image. Okay, and this will run independently. Okay, and you don't really require to worry about the v1 v2 and v3. Okay, so the versions, like that you can directly whenever you are building those images, you can just tag them v1 v2 v3, and whenever you are trying to run them on the Docker container, okay, you just give a different port number to execute these versions separately. So that means whenever if you want to change something on the V1, it will never impact the V2. Okay. And if it is V3, yeah, so it will never impact the V2 and V1. Okay. So those services can still run independently. Okay, but in the existing architecture, like now if we are not using images, okay, so we usually deploy the entire application, and that will definitely impact all the versions, okay, to come down, right? Like there will be some kind of what do we say, business impact, or they have to wait for the services available until the service is available, right? So those things actually we can avoid with Docker. Okay, so let me go and show you how exactly this Docker works, right? So yeah, so I already have a project, okay, so which can you know which we can utilize in the Docker. Okay, what I'll do, I'll just just a minute. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let me try refactoring whether if it is going to work or not. Okay, one second. Um, Sample. Okay. Okay. So when you utilize, yeah. Okay. So right now, we were utilizing Spring Boot. Okay. The projects, whatever we have designed, right? Like, these are all like Spring Boot projects, correct? So what we need to do is, okay, so we just need to utilize one of the famous command, like from Maven. Okay, so using Spring Boot, colon build image. Okay, so what exactly this does, right? This is going to create an image of your application. Okay, so whatever the application that you have designed, it is going to create a image which is ready, which is like ready to deploy it into the um, Docker. And also, if the Docker desktop is already installed in your system, and this particular Spring Boot build image command, with the help of Maven, it is automatically deploys that image into your Docker desktop. Okay, so that you'll see it over here. Okay, and I was talking about the command prompt, right? Okay, so let me just show you. Okay. Yeah, so this is my current version of Docker. Okay, and whatever the commands that we were talking about here, right? Docker container ls and image ls. Okay, so we'll see that first. Okay, there is nothing running now. Okay, there are no images as well. Okay, so I think the Docker is not yet started. It seems like, right? So let me go there. Extensions. Okay, that's fine. Okay, just a minute. Let me. um, yeah, it is. It shows like Docker desktop is running. Okay, so we should be okay. Yeah, but I'm just checking like whether why it is not showing these images. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so what I will do, let's start this one. Docker first image, and this is the Docker sample and Spring Boot build in JDK 17. Okay, so let me just click apply and just run it. Okay, so when you run this one, right, like, it will take quite some time, okay, to build that image, okay, using Maven and Spring, okay. So what this image contains, right, it contains everything that you require to run your application, okay, and it is going to create that jar file, and the jar file will be, available in the image, okay. So that image, we can run it anywhere in the desktop, cloud, as I mentioned, like, any organization system that you can run that image. Okay. Now what it is doing, it actually pulling something from, docker.io. It is going to build those, images. Okay, it is going to build those image. For that, it actually downloading all the dependencies, and yeah, so once that is done, it will run, to create an image command. Okay, so let me just push it up. Yeah, yeah, there are a couple of other ways that we can create images, in a different way also, but this plugin provides you like very less, what do we say, very less work, to create the Docker images. Yeah, there is one more way that we can create it, for Java applications. Okay, but this one is like very simple. Okay, so you don't require to worry about, much of the things. Yeah, it seems like, it already created that, you know uh, Docker image, okay, for our application. So this is what docker.io in library docker.-sample snapshot. So this is going to be there inside that image, right? So, and this is our image ID. Okay, so let me go to the Docker desktop and I'll show you. So Docker hyphen sample, right? F37, correct? This one, Docker hyphen sample. And where is this? Yeah, F37. Okay. So now if you want to, your image is already present in the Docker, right? It just tagged into the Docker. So, and it is pointing to the snapshot version, docker.sample. So 0.0.1. Okay. And the snapshot version that you see it here, correct? So if you want to run this image in the Docker, right, you just read to type one command. Okay, so similarly something like this. Yeah, Okay, so what was the project name? Docker hyphen sample, right? So let me just go to there and just update Docker hyphen sample. Okay, and if you click enter, yeah, okay. Oh, okay, okay, 1 second. Yeah, I think that is because of the snapshot, right? Mm-hmm. Why it's not able to find in local? I type something wrong. Okay, yeah, instead of going with that 1 second, okay, so what I'll do, uh, let's try with image ID. Yeah, so okay, Windows 7 blocks some feature of this app. Okay, so, okay. Okay, so once you see this one, right? Okay, so I don't know like why it was not able to recognize that Docker hyphen sample project. Okay, so I have done using the image ID whatever it has been created. Okay, so I was just trying to run that Docker container run command. Okay, in a detached mode and with a port number 3333 and it is 8080 for the application. Okay, so this is our image ID whichever it is created when we create the image, right? So once you done this one, right, it is going to give you a unique ID to for the container run whatever you requested. So now if you go back and check container ls. Okay, so you'll definitely see one image is running. What was that image? Okay, so this is our image, okay, which we just started. That is for Docker. Yeah, so that is for our Docker hyphen sample project. Okay, so now it is running on the image, right? The container already started that image. So you can utilize that application, okay, in your local, okay, without starting anything. Okay, so you just started that image, okay, and that in the Docker, and let me go and show you. Okay, so the code changes whatever we have it under this Docker hyphen sample is pretty much simple. Okay, so the application will have one Spring Boot application file which is going to kick off the application to start, and there is hello world controller. Okay, so in this controller I don't have much. Okay, so I just created a get mapping. So that means, this is a get method that we have it for Hello World. And when you open this one, it is going to print, Hello World Java file on your console, or, on your browser. Okay, so let me just, try to uh, call the application. Okay, localhost colon 3333, right? So that was the port number which we talked about. See, message, hello world Java file. So that means uh, through image, we were trying to run our application, okay, on the Docker, okay, on the Docker image with pretty much simple steps, using Maven and Spring Boot, image build, and that image will be deployed into your Docker desktop, and this is available for, for running, the images in your local. And once you run them, okay, so it actually, shows that output on your browser, right? So that means, if I don't have Java application, if I don't have anything that which is really required for this application to run, okay, so but still that image is going to help you to run all those things. Okay, and the best part is, like, if you really want to run this application, okay, in your local system, yeah, it is pretty much easy. Okay, so if I push this Docker file, okay, into hub, right, push to hub, okay, so it is going to create okay, so I think, might be I need to just log in back again. Okay, one second. Okay, yeah, just try to, one second, let me do it through command. Docker hyphen sample, right? Docker hyphen sample. 0.0.1 only, right? Docker hyphen sample colon 0.0.1 hyphen snapshot, and Docker to Docker hyphen sample colon latest. Okay, so let me just run this command. Okay, okay, so it just tagged it. Okay, I'm gonna push it, okay, to Docker hub. Okay, so once I push it to the Docker hub, okay, so the same project, same image will be available for entire, world. Okay, so I was just pushing into the public repository. So, and if you really want to run your application, okay, if you really want to run this, in your local system, yeah, you can just download this Docker hyphen sample, okay, and from your Docker desktop, and you can simply run it without installing Java, without installing any other things. Okay, yeah. So okay, so it just pushed it. Okay, so the Docker push is working fine. Okay, so it is going to push that image into the Docker hub. Okay, and whenever you wanted to execute this application in your local, right, you just need to download your Docker Hub, okay, Docker Hub desktop, and just create a ID, and you don't require to worry about, if the project is available in your application in your local or not. You can just simply run this Docker container run, okay, this command, okay. So this command will be helpful for to running any of the any of the images in your local, right? So if you run this one, okay, and if the application is really not available, in your local, it actually downloads that and it will run on your local, with the specific port number, whatever you have assigned. Okay, so for right now, it is running on 3333. Okay, and it is giving you the output. Okay, so I was talking about the detached mode, right? And if you wanted to create multiple instances of this application, that whatever we are trying to run, okay, in Docker, so it is pretty much simple, to create those things, in one simple command. Okay, so what was that command that we can use it? Just copy the same command. Okay, like the container, whatever it is presently running, and just change your port number. Okay, just change your port number. Okay, and just click it. Okay, so it created two run times for the same project, but with the different port numbers. Okay, so if I go back and check doc container ls, so there will be two things that two images that are running. Okay, the image is one and the containers were different. Okay, and whatever you see it here, and internally it actually connects to your 3334 3334 port number to 8080. There is this Tomcat 1 TCP. So it has those kind of things that you can simply create multiple containers, and you can just manage the load of your application, right? So if now I go back and check 3334, okay, even I have access to the application, with the same thing, right? It is giving me the same output. Got it, right? So yeah, so this is like, very, very useful way, like, when you have a Docker and you can just, simply create an image and, deploy that image into the Docker, and you can utilize anywhere on the world, okay, to run that image actually once you push it to the Docker Hub. Okay, so and these images are available for entire world, once you push it to the Docker Hub. If you have very specific permissions, actually, if you don't want to expose it, yeah, you can still do that. Okay, and you can just maintain some restrictions on the repository on the Git Docker Hub. Okay, so that you will be able to make those restrictions on the repository. Okay, so that way you cannot it will not be available for other users as well. Okay, so okay, one second, what I'll do, I'll just okay, it's not okay. So these are the things that which are available in in my hub. Okay, so these are the four. Okay, so I think it should come for Docker hyphen sample also. Yeah, so today, okay, so this was created today, and yeah, so if you see here 4 minutes ago, and yeah, so if you really want to pull this one, from the Docker Hub, you can just type this command in your local Docker Hub. Okay, so Docker desktop, it will be available for you. Okay, so I will continue the discussion about the Docker, tomorrow as well, and we'll see one more example, how to deploy this as an image. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be taking them. And I'm just pasting this, this file, Docker hyphen command file, okay, in the chat. Okay, so this is going to be useful, if you wanted to run anything on your local. Okay, so just get them from the chat. Okay, yeah, I just pasted. Okay, so it should be available for you guys. Okay, and if you read, if you need that project as well, docker hyphen sample whatever I have created, and those commands whatever it is there, okay, I can just give you, I can just share them. Okay, if you want to practice them, just a minute. Yeah, so just exporting. Docker hyphen sample and command everything. Okay, yeah. Just a minute. Okay, so I'm just going to, yeah, okay, so it's just done, just overwritten. Okay, now just do a refresh. Yeah, okay, I'm just giving this Docker hyphen sample project as well. Okay, so this is like, you can directly check out in your Eclipse or any other like IDE. Okay, and simply you can run this application, with the step whatever I have done it, using maven command. Okay, so in the maven command, when you are trying to run this application, so you just need to simply use this particular you know command. Okay, so in the maven, right, spring hyphen boot, okay, colon build image, and to make sure that when you utilize this one, okay, you make sure that your desktop docker desktop is running. Okay, maven command. Okay, yeah, your docker desktop has running, and it will definitely show you, like, once the image is done, and you can always see those images which are available in the local. Okay, with the name of your application docker hyphen sample. Okay, but you won't be able to see this, my name. Okay, so my username over here, but it will be in your project. Okay, so it will be showing your username hyphen docker hyphen sample. And if you really want to push, or if you really want to run without any setup of this application, you can simply install docker desktop and create an id for yourself and just run this command. Okay, so run this command. Where was that? Yeah, 1 second. Just one. Yeah, okay, just run this command. Run this command just after installing docker desktop. Okay, so what it does, right, it will verify in your local repo, and if it is not found, it is definitely going to download it from the GitHub, sorry, the Docker Hub, and it will make that image downloaded to your local Docker desktop, and it will run the application, run the image, and seamlessly you can just directly go to the browser and you can just hit localhost 3333. It will work fine. Okay, so that's how it is. It makes very simple, like when you have those images which are available in the GitHub, sorry, Docker Hub, so it can download them from there. Okay, so let me know if you can try, if you get some chance today, to try this one. Yeah, and if you have any questions on the Docker also, please ask me. I'll try to clarify them. Yeah, that's all for today, and I'll continue the same similar topic, like with one more example tomorrow. We'll deploy into the Docker, and also we'll run it. Okay, so like the detached mode, whatever we just saw it, and to stop them, simply do this. Okay, so Docker, where is the Docker? Okay, Docker container stop. Okay, you don't require to give entire entire string, so you can just give the 259 and 4e. Oh, okay, one second. I think it doesn't require that comma. Okay, so if it prints something like this, okay, so for the Docker container stop, I was just using the container IDs, which is starting with 259, which is starting with 4e. So I wanted to stop them. So it stopped right now. Okay, so if it prints those container IDs again, it will be stopping. So how to check this, whether it stopped? Use just Docker container ls, and you won't be seeing anything which is running under the containers. Okay. Yeah, that's all for today. Okay, so these are the commands that we need to remember, to play with Docker. And as I mentioned, like you can also just try to repeat the same thing whatever I have done today, and you can just you will be able to run this in the Docker. Okay, and not only these application, you can also this is very simple basic application which I have deployed into the Docker. So tomorrow when we are trying to deploy it, actually it will be having something little more, okay, services and little more, like related to the database side. Okay, we are going to we are going to check on those kind of project tomorrow. Okay, so that's all for today. Yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah, thanks, Harish.
Yeah, thanks, Suja.